Good afternoon, everyone. I call this virtual public hearing for House Bill 3072 to sunset the Board of Forestry to order. I want to briefly state some of the procedures and rules that will apply to during this virtual public hearing. The House Rules of Conduct and Decorum are in full effect during these proceedings. This is a professional and all official hearing of the House Committee on Government Organization and will be conducted as such. Members and individuals may not speak out of turn or without recognition by the chair. Please hold any public displays of support or opposition in any manner. This is a courtesy out of respect to each individual, to give each individual an equal opportunity to be heard without interruption. I will ask that you please mute yourself until I call upon you to unmute yourself in order to take turns speaking. Those speaking may not want to exit the virtual hearing in the event that there are questions from members of the Committee on Government Organization who are in attendance. Please do not engage in personal remarks about members or another individual in this virtual hearing. We are audibly streaming live, so please be mindful of that. When I call your name to speak, I will also announce the name of the next individual scheduled to speak. I ask that the second individual please be prepared to immediately begin their commentary when the prior speaker's time ends, and I will recognize you to begin. Due to the number of individuals that we have signed up to speak, each individual will have 3 minutes to speak. We will be strictly adhering to this time limitation. When your 3 minutes is up, we will notify you and will immediately move to the next individual recognized. Again, this is out of a courtesy to ensure everyone gets their allotted time to speak. The first individual to speak will be Mr. Eric Carlson, followed by Mr. John Holstein. And my clerk does have the time prepared. So whenever you are ready to begin, Mr. Carlson, please go ahead and begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Eric Carlson. I'm Executive Director of the West Virginia Forestry Association. I want to appreciate your putting forth this public hearing on House Bill 3072. I think this is an important piece of legislation. I represent many forest interests in West Virginia that include many of the people of the 170,000 forest owners in West Virginia who employ directly or indirectly registered foresters that are recognized by the Board of Forestry Registration. Our initial opposition to this effort to sunset the board was to the committee's appreciated amendments that added some significant qualifications to this in terms of education of people, both foresters and forest technicians. We have heard from many of our members that the forest technician category is something that needs to be recognized as well. As you know, West Virginia has 2 exceptional forestry schools at West Virginia University, producing bachelor's level foresters and a forest technology program at Glenville State College. And this registration of foresters in West Virginia that's inclusive of both of those categories with experience in continuing education has enabled these graduates to stay here, some of which are residents of West Virginia and some of which have learned, like myself, that West Virginia is a great place to stay for the rest of your life and enjoy this opportunity. I would make 2 suggestions to the current committee substitute, one of which is in 1917A, is to change the word may to shall in terms of having directing the Division of Forestry the opportunity to have a voluntary registration to make this a requirement that do establish this. The second change I would suggest is that the term qualified by experience and continuing education be added to 171A7A so that when the rulemaking process is completed, a refined effort could be to refine what qualifications, experience, and continuing education would be required. It's already required by the current board. It would be sunset if this legislation should pass, and we think it's important to continue that level of qualification. It's something that our forest owners seek and would love to have that continue. We heard testimony from West Virginia State Forester Tom Cover, who was willing to, should this legislation pass, establish this, and we think that that should be a requirement to establish this and have the rulemaking process, which gives your committee, the joint oversight committees, the chance to take a look at the final rulemaking. So I want to just, again, thank you very much for hosting this and listening to our concerns. And as you consider the final preparation of this second reading tomorrow and the rest of the week.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Up next will be John Holstein, followed by Todd Lauder. Mr. Holstein, you may unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the opportunity to give us a chance to speak out. In my excuse me, I am in opposition of this bill. Just to give you a little bit of a background, I am a private consulting forester. I am also president of West Virginia Forestry Association. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as in my business. I think one of the reasons I oppose the bill is because I think it delegitimizes our education. Most of us in West Virginia either went to Glenville State College and received a forest technician degree and maybe went on to receive a natural resource management degree, which is what I've done, and or others have received their forestry degree or wood science degree from West Virginia University. We paid quite a bit of money and put forth quite a bit of time at the state college and the state university, and we think the state should recognize us for those efforts. With all the training that we have to go through every year to keep our registration, I think it's important, and I don't think anybody should be just going out there to practice forestry. The foresters have a lot of responsibility and have to have common knowledge about all sorts of, not only forestry. We have to know about a little bit about civil engineering, road building, surveying, real estate law, and business. Even with a lot, what I do is forest management for private landowners, but also estate planning goes along with that as well. But also too, I think I'm opposed to it because I don't think the Division of Forestry it can handle the extra workload because it's already underfunded, understaffed. Another reason the Board of Registration for Foresters is self-sufficient. The taxpayers, as there's no cost to the taxpayers,
Thank you, Mr. Holstein. Up next will be Todd Lauder. You can unmute yourself now, Mr. Lauder, and begin when you feel led.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm going to read because I got a lot to say and a short period of time to do it in. I want to be respectful of the time limits. So I prepared a short statement. Much of what makes the great state of West Virginia so wonderful is its forests, which provide the state with clean water, air, and recreation. This bill will remove the existing minimal protections provided to ensure the forest resources are managed by credentialed, vetted professionals with the education and experience to make informed decisions on forest practices that come maybe once or twice in a generation. These decisions have far-reaching ramifications on our society. The existing statute, again, provides only minimal levels of protection for those seeking professional foresters to guide them. What should be being considered is how to strengthen the statute, not its elimination. If the bill passes, foresters will be less credentialed than lawyers, doctors, nurses, electricians, plumbers, and even waitresses. Each of these are required by the state to provide evidence they are qualified to do their jobs before being allowed to do so. It would appear from the outside that West Virginia's forests and those who manage them are held in very low esteem by those supporting this bill. This should come as no surprise because the Studies show that the Department of Forestry here in West Virginia has the lowest salaries of any of the 5 adjoining states. In 2016, the department was gutted when it was forced to lay off many of its staff due to the lack of funding. And we were on the verge of doing the same thing again this year if it wasn't for the recent passage of supplemental funding for the department. This bill would potentially add additional responsibilities to an already thinly stretched group of dedicated professionals. The emerging and evolving forest industries are placing more emphasis on certified sustainability programs like SFI, FSC, ATF, markets like carbon credits, wetland mitigation, conservation easements, forest legacy, and managed timberland programs that add value to our forests and to our state. Each of these programs is looking for credentialed professionals to implement and manage these initiatives. The bill lowers the bar in a manner such that the title forester could be used by a high school dropout or a felon, as well as anybody else who doesn't have the training or experience to practice forestry. The bill devalues the state schools of forestry and its graduates. The question on my mind, and that should be on.
Thank you, Mr. Lauder. That appears to be the end of the registered individuals to speak during this public hearing. Are there any questions from members on the Committee of Government Organization? If not, I declare this public hearing adjourned. Thank you all for joining us.